making golf head covers today. I have never made these prior to making this video. So we make the pattern together. It worked really, really well. I do have some amendments that I make at the end of the video, so make sure you watch the whole thing. Let's just start it. Let's just start the tutorial. The first thing that we need to do is that we need to create our pattern. I did some research online at some major retailers, some starting with a W or perhaps a T or an A, places that we don't need to buy golf head covers from because we're making them ourselves. And I wanted to see how big a finished golf head cover ends up being and like which golf clubs need covers, blah, 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 blah. So this is what I found. A driver, a wood, either 3 or 5, or you can make one for both, and a hybrid. So 3 to 4 covers. I'm gonna make 3. The specifications for a finished driver are like 7-inch at the head of it and about 13 or 14 inches long. The specifications for a finished wood is about 5 inches around the head of it and about 11 inches long. And the specifications for a finished hybrid cover, about 4.5 inches around the head and about 10 inches long. So I'm gonna make a pattern now with that knowledge to make them myself. I have 3 pieces of construction paper to do this. And yes, it's green because golf. Let's do the driver together and then you can figure out the other ones on your own. So if a finished driver around the head is about 7 inches, we want to make our pattern about 8 inches. That gives us enough space for a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So what I'm gonna do basically is I'm gonna draw an 8-inch circle and then I'm just gonna like put some legs down. And the end result is gonna be like an arch. I feel like that's going to work. How do I get an 8-inch circle? If you have a printer, you can go onto Canva or Paint or something free on your computer and make yourself an 8-inch circle and print that. If I had a printer, that's for sure what I would do. I don't though. I'm not a Rockefeller. Something else you can do. If you have a tape measure like this, with that little hole right in the center, you can measure out radius, never mind, I'm not even gonna try. An 8-inch circle, 1/2 of 8 is 4. So measure to 4, stab through the circle on the tape measure and draw all the way around, kind of like protractor style. And that should probably get you about an 8-inch circle. That's another good option if you have a very steady hand. The route I'm going today is I just went around my house with a tape measure and started measuring every circular object I could find to trace it. This appetizer plate is an 8-inch plate. So I'm gonna trace this. I used green pen because golf, but hopefully you can see this. That's an 8-inch circle. Next thing I need to do, did I say you needed 3 pieces of paper? You might need more than 3. I'm gonna tape 2 pieces of paper together because I need my finished length of this to be about 14 inches. So I'm gonna measure from the top of my circle 14 inches and I'm just gonna make a mark there. Okay, carry that mark all the way over. So that's 14 inches where that line is, not where my painter's tape is. And then I'm gonna go from the very side of the circle and draw a straight line down to my 14-inch mark on both sides. So I'm gonna cut this out. All right, here is my pattern for the driver. We need one more thing. Upon my research of looking at already made golf covers, a lot of them have like elastic to hold them on or like zippers and stuff. But you swear like I'm gonna put zippers and do custom outfits for these golf clubs. Yeah, right. So elastic will work just fine. This is 14 inches. So halfway is 7 inches. I want to put my elastic, I think maybe at 6 inches. It's pretty close to the bottom of my circle. So I feel that's kind of why I'm aiming for right there. It's like near the bottom of the circle. I don't know. It feels right to me. My husband is not a golfer, but he is a white man, and I believe that they give you golf clubs when you're born as a white guy. So he does have golf clubs that I'll be able to test these on. There is my line. That's where I'm gonna aim for my elastic when the time comes. So cut out your patterns for all 3 and then I'll see you in a second. Literally, because I'm just gonna edit to that right now. Here are the dimensions again, because I was just yelling numbers earlier. Do, 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 do. Measurements over my face. Do, 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 do. Measurements over my face. Did you get them? With my patterns sketched and cut out, I can now go over the supplies you need because, now I know. You need a 1/2 yard of the fabric that you want to use on the outside. You need a 1/2 yard of the fabric that you want to use as a lining. I'm going to use this green on the outside, and I'm going to use these old pillowcases on the inside for the lining. You also need at least a 1/2 yard of batting. You need elastic. The only elastic I had was 1 inch wide, and I think this is too wide. So I went ahead and sliced it right down the middle to create little 1/2 inch elastics. Boy, oh boy, do I hope that people don't start flooding my comments right now and saying, you cut elastic in half, you fool. These will fall apart. Shame on you. I think it'll work. A lot of these golf covers have like a label on them to indicate which club is within. Not all of them, but a lot of them I saw. And I think I'm gonna do that just for fun. You can embroider those like it's a number. So like the drivers all have 1 on them. And then the different woods are either 3 or 5. So I don't really care which wood they put this on. So maybe I'll do like a W for wood. And a lot of the hybrids either say H for hybrid or X for hybrid. I don't know. So I'm going to do a 1, a W, and an X. And boy, do I hope it makes sense. I'm going to applique those on. So I'm going to use some of this fusible interfacing as well. Step 1. Well, why do I even say that? We've done so much already. Here's what I'm doing next. I am going to quilt the outside of my fabric before I cut out the pattern. So I'm going to take my little 1/2 yard of fabric and I am going to quilt it onto my batting. You quilt it however you want. Perhaps I jumped the gun a bit when I was just like, go quilt it. I just maybe assumed that you'd been here before or that you knew what you were doing, but maybe you don't, and that's absolutely okay. I teach a lot of beginner stuff. Take your batting, and we are going to baste our batting and our front fabric on there together. I truly have like the most perfect size scrap batting for this. Could not be happier. But if you don't have batting and you don't feel like buying a bunch of it, fleece is a good option, or some old towels work really well. Whatever you can find. This isn't like there to keep the golf clubs warm. It's to protect them from like flies. I don't know what these are for, to be honest. If you are going to quilt this on your domestic machine, just like line them up close, maybe put a little bit of batting around the edge. I'm going to do this on my embroidery machine though, so I need a little bit of meat on the side for my embroidery arm to grab onto. I'm going to place it right here, and I'm going to go ahead and baste with pins. This is a smaller project. Pins will work just fine. Other basting options are to use a spray adhesive, spray that over your batting, and then lay this top fabric on. Nice, clean, crispy booty. Once I have this basted, now I'm gonna go and quilt. Do you feel like I've set you up better now? Some quilting inspiration on a domestic machine, go look at my video about doing laptop covers or pot holders. All right, so I have my 1/2 yard of fabric here all quilted up nicely, and now I need to cut out my pattern pieces. Grab something heavy, soup can. I'm gonna use this big bottle of starch. Jeez. Something to weigh your pattern down while you cut it out. All right, I have all of my pattern pieces cut out. These are my 2 driver guys from the front. And I also have the lining cut out as well, 2 pieces of that. Using the same pattern, everything the same size. So 4 pieces for the driver, my 4 pieces for the hybrid, and 4 pieces for the wood. Now what I want to do is I want to attach the little like numbers or whatever I'm going to put on it. I am using this fusible interfacing. So it's got a grid paper right here that you can draw on to do stuff like this. Did I use a ruler when I was drawing these templates? Of course not. I'm an Aries. I don't have time. So I'm going to take these drawn pieces here and I'm going to stick it onto the fabric that I want to use as like the labels. I've got this green like tiny gingham fabric. It just screams golf to me. All of this like green plaid it's just like golf, golf, golf. I'm going to take the back piece of paper off of this. And by the way, I have this stuff on my Amazon storefront. They also sell it in like a bunch of quilt shops, sewing shops. Michael's probably even has this, but I'm going to take the back piece of paper off. So I've got sticky piece right here. And I'm going to stick it right onto my fabric. Oh, I should have drawn these backwards. Oh, well, too late. It's not backwards. Whoops. I mean, is a W the same no matter what direction? Let me experiment with the W. Peel off the back to reveal some sticky stuff. Put that on the wrong side of the fabric. Got it. Cut out design. Right, that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna peel this off and stick this gridded paper side onto my fabric. So that's why the one that I made should have been backwards. Well, that's fine. The W and the X will be fine as is. I will redraw the 1 backwards. Not the end of the world. All right, so here's my W, and that's for the wood. So I'm going to take this W. I'm going to peel off the checkered side that I drew on. Okay, and I'm going to stick this. I don't want to go too close to the top because it's going to be sewn. And I want it to be seen. Does this look like like the W looks fine, but like maybe these fabrics together kind of look like I'm going to commit. So now I need to iron this to like seal it. I'm not going to put the iron directly on this. So I'm just going to put some scrap fabric in between. And then you press for like 10 to 15 seconds. All right, that's on there. So now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to sew around this because I don't trust for this to stay on just with that, but this at least gives it a foundation to not move around while I'm sewing. While you're going to sit down at your sewing machine to trace around these little markers, let's also attach our elastic. Turn this over to the wrong side. Find your little line with elastic. My elastic, I cut it a little bit over half of the width of this. So kind of remember where it's supposed to go. I'm going to pin one side of the elastic here. I'm going to sew the shit out of it right here so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to stretch it and I'm going to pin over here as well. Guess I don't have to stretch. I can just let it come with me. I'm going to pin here. And I'm going to sew the shit out of it here. And then I'll stretch her and I will sew along this entire thing. All right, my little markers are sewn on and the elastic is sewn on. So let's sew these things together. I got clips and right sides together. I am going to clip around and we're going to sew it. It's a little bit like the shape of the back one has changed now with the elastic, so just stretch it again to make it fit. So I'm going to sew all the way around the edge here and leave the bottom open. While I'm at my sewing machine, I'm going to take my 2 lining pieces, right sides together for your lining as well. Clip, clip, clip. You're going to do the exact same thing where you're going to sew all the way around, except maybe not exactly the same thing, because you need to leave like a 3-inch gap in your sewing, a big hole in your sewing. That's going to be because we need to turn this whole thing out. So this lining is right sides together, leave a 3 or 4 inch hole, but otherwise you're going to sew around this arch, leaving the bottom open as well. Oh yeah, 1/2 inch seam when you are sewing all of this together. When we were creating our pattern earlier, we added 1 inch to like those finished numbers. That was to account for a 1/2 inch seam allowance that we are going to do on this whole thing. Now that these are all sewn, hooray, we're nearly done. Take your lining and its respective cover and make a couple little slits around the curved top. Don't go crazy and cut into the seam that you just sewed, but just a couple slits around these rounded edges. Now that those rounded edges are clipped, let's take our outer piece and let's flip it right side out. Looks pretty cute, you know? Like, I don't have a big frame of reference, but hey, if I was golfing, I would use this. We need to attach this to its lining. So the lining, we're still keeping inside out. Take this guy and you're gonna shove it in the lining. Remember, your lining has a hole, and get this to fit nice and close and snug. Once you've got that in there, line up your seams and make sure that they are in the same place and clip them together. And then go around and you can clip the rest of this, because we're gonna take this to our sewing machine and we are going to, the goal is that same 1/2 inch seam. That's what we were cutting our pattern to, but especially with like the smaller ones, just do your best. Don't do anything smaller than 1/4 inch though, because you want this lining to be solid. I don't know like how much these golf head covers get used and abused, but we're not trying to have this fall apart. Just be mindful when you're pushing it through your sewing machine that you're not accidentally sewing this closed. That's a bummer. But go around and sew this all together. All right, let's pull these out of the holes that we left in the lining. These pillowcases have been great, like cotton fabric, but my goodness, do they fray. Make sure this is nice. The whole arch is popped out good. I mean, these look good. Like, we need to take this back to the sewing machine and tuck in the raw edges of the hole that we made and sew that down. I'm gonna hit these with an iron actually before I like sew that raw edge in, because I'm not gonna do a good job if I don't, and I'd like to do a good job. We've gotten this far. It's a little bit late right now, but tomorrow when these are all done, I'm gonna have my husband grab his golf clubs and we're gonna see how these fit. Sew these holes closed, shove the liners back in, and if it fits on the golf clubs, then these are done. Okay, these are complete, and I have enlisted the help of my husband who owns golf clubs. Couple things quickly that I just want to say, like a debrief on these now that they are finished. I did a top stitch about 1/4 inch around the entire edge right here after I put the lining in, just to really make sure it stays. And if I were to make these again, I probably would have trimmed the seams on the lining before turning it all out on itself. It's not like crazy bulky up here, but it just like something about it I don't think fits 100%. I don't think that the golf clubs are gonna mind that their little jackets don't fit 100%, but just maybe trim on top a little bit. Anyways, let's see if they fit.
Hey, fits.
That fits! If it was like blowing in the wind in the back of a golf cart, yeah, it's not gonna come off, right?
Just don't drive in the golf cart with that friend.
This friend?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what I'm thinking, another like sort of debrief is I made the elastic a little over halfway. Maybe just only do it halfway. I feel like these could be tighter.
Yes.
I don't think that they're gonna fly off.
Well, jealous of whoever gets these.
Do you want some?
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
All right, well, we'll see
Can
if
someone make me some and send them to us?
No! See if I have time.